I think I'm getting Twitter pilled.
Oh no.
Okay, I'm trying to understand immigration. I need you to check me because you're an informed person on this, and I'm not. Why are the French riots happening? Everything on Twitter says it's an immigration problem.
Conservatives, in a roundabout way, are incredibly correct at something that they don't realize because they always use it in a racist way, but it's actually incredibly true. The left-leaning people feel bad because they don't want to call anything out because brown people can never do wrong. The right-leaning people become increasingly racist because they see problems and like, we need to get all these brown people out of here, especially immigrants from Northern Africa that are destroying our country. And you're gridlocked where the right is probably a bit too racist and the left is probably a bit too cucked. And you can't have an actual conversation about like, what the f do we even do about any of this? Well, what's up? How have you been? Anything fun?
Oh, dude, I'm really well. I just got back from my business partner's wedding. We've been going crazy at the agency. We like 5x our revenue in like 7 months. That's fucking crazy.
Good. Yeah, cool. What crypto are you selling? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. It's worse than that, bro. It's AIs. It's the other meme.
Gotcha.
All the crypto people went from that.
I'm still waiting for somebody to put like AI on a blockchain and then sell an NFT of it or some stupid shit, but yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I've made my mistakes with crypto, and I'm hopefully past that phase of my life. I'm gonna do some other stupid investment now. But it's funny because I think we're one of the few companies that's actually using GPT at scale.
Okay.
And when I listen to like all of the Twitter threads and everything on like people that are talking about it, I realize how like crypto pilled I was when I thought I knew what I was talking about, but I wasn't actually making anything happen like practically in the real world from it, right?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like really different at an agency level that we're actually like doing shit every day with it now. We're processing about 10 million GPT requests a day through OpenAI.
Yeah, that stuff is getting pretty crazy.
It's getting pretty nuts, man. Yeah, there's like streamers doing it now, like the Vidal bot. Have you seen that on Twitch?
Is that the thing that is just all AI ran?
It's this little girl that like
yeah, I've people had her type messages with me and shit, I think. If it's what I'm thinking of, yeah.
Did you still have motherfucking game, right? Okay, cool. This chat is saved. Good.
Everybody wants to know what you used GPT for. People are asking that, or a couple guys are asking.
So we use it to interpret the results of content. So what we do is we try to determine if that content is sponsored or not, and if it is, who is it sponsored by, and why does that matter? And then we use that data, we aggregate that to make more informed decisions about how we select for influencers or marketing campaigns for our brands. So to put that way simpler, we literally just download other people's content, figure out what it does, and then we collect all that and tell brands what the best practices are for like their advertising campaigns.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Interesting.
Yeah, it's cool. I think we're the only people doing it right now. What's funny about GPT is that it makes such stupid ass mistakes. Like it'll say something like, "This video is in Korean," and it'll be like, "No, it isn't." Like it's clearly not. Like it makes really weird logic leaps that no human being ever would. And for that reason, I don't think that it's like even close to being like, so like out of the 10 million requests on average that we process per day, we get about 300,000 like just outright errors, but the errors are stupid. They're not like errors that you or I would make. They're really, really obvious logic problems that just we actually need to hire somebody to go through to be able to just like check the box that's like, no, this is just not true.
Yeah. There's a, it was really funny. I'm making this up because I'm exclusively going off of headlines here, so I might be literally inventing some of this. But I think somebody tried to get like ChatGPT to do like litigation, to actually try to go to court and argue a case through ChatGPT. And apparently they were running into problems where it was just like making up court cases.
Yeah, it does. It makes up all kinds of things. It'll just literally, it's so weird how it does it though, because I don't understand like the inner process of LLMs or anything, but it just makes up things that are so like, for a human being, they would be able to look at it and in like a split second, they'd be like, that's like total nonsense.
Yeah.
And that's really crazy when you're using this thing to like do medical advice or you know, plan routines and stuff like that. It's like pretty spooky.
Yeah, it's funny. It breaks like in really like not inhuman ways, yeah.
Yes, it does.
Wait, let me break your brain. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Think about this really carefully. What does YES spell?
Yes.
What does EYES spell?
Are you trying to trap me in like a racist thing?
No, I'm just asking. Y-E-S.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is what?
So Y-E-S spells what?
Yes.
What does E-Y-E-S spell?
E-Y-E-S. E-Y-E. Is it eyes?
Yeah. But that's just
okay.
that's like a funny
That took
example.
me a
Like,
second.
yeah, I know, but like sometimes like the way that you parse information, the way you look at stuff, it can like break your brain in like really weird ways. You could run into like interesting problems where it's like, why is this even hard? Yeah. That's just like to demonstrate that like depending on how the logic is parsing in like an AI, it can start spitting out like unbelievably stupid things. But depending on how it's trained or how it's looking at stuff, like it's just like a funny random little meme or whatever.
That's really cool because I wonder if it's the actual prompt that because I thought of yes, that like maybe if you had said that like differently the first way, I would have thought about it differently.
Yeah, of course. If you say like, can you spell so Y-E-S and then can you say E-Y-E-S versus like E-Y-E-S, right? Like just like the accent can like change the way that you view, like can completely change the entire way that you view a particular thing. Yeah.
That did break my brain. That's some crazy shit. That's like some of the problems we're running into. I think the other real crazy thing is like whenever we use GPT for like actual problem solving within the company, it seems we can a lot of times just sort of pull back to like where it's finding that information from. Like it's probably scraped it from some website and then like modified it or something. So I don't think it's the panacea that everybody thinks it is, but it is an interesting productivity tool for certain use cases.
Sure. You know something that I thought was really interesting that I haven't thought about a lot? I feel like search technology has maybe actually gone backwards by maybe 15 or 20 years in a really unintuitive way. So one of the cool things is if you use a search engine, the search engine like Google today is an incredibly sophisticated search engine, gathers results from all over the world, millions of different blah, 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 blah. However, in reality, 99% of people, if I had to guess, it truly probably is 99% of searches are probably clicked on the very first page, right?
Yeah,
however, one of the big issues is rather than like a collection, like a worldwide web, we actually have a nexus of like 4 or 5 huge sites that people go to for information. So when you use Google to search for information, you're not actually using a sophisticated search engine to try to like scour the internet for a source. What you're really doing is you're using a program that essentially is pulling like Reddit and Quora to see what's there, maybe Stack Overflow, right? You really, I noticed this because when Reddit went down for like all the protests or whatever, Google's functionality became severely inhibited.
Yes.
And that is actually very interesting to me that like Google is really just a sophisticated like table of contents for these other massive nexi of information, like Reddit or Quora or Stack Overflow. Yeah, which is interesting because instead of like this like huge disparate collection of random things on the internet for data, we just have like these big like collections of Wikipedias essentially, you know? Yeah. Especially
now, it's funny because I got really sick and I had strep throat bordering on scarlet fever, my some medieval shit.
Okay.
And I had to get clindamycin. And so I started having a pretty severe allergic reaction to it because it's a pretty heavy antibiotic. And then I went out to Google and I was like, shit, like at what point do I need to go to a doctor for this? Started clicking on all the Reddit stuff and it's like, sorry, we're in protest because, and I'm like, I'm fucking dying, dude. I'm like, oh shit. Yeah. I actually was like, I couldn't find any information.
I'm imagining like some future world where somebody, and I've thought about this before, like I'm pretty sure there are stories where somebody's choking and somebody like YouTubes a video of like the Heimlich maneuver and saves somebody. Imagine if like it's down, or like imagine if like, sorry, I deleted this video in protest and like grandma just dies choking on her turkey or some shit, and it's like, well.
I was really surprising that like some of the like Reddit protest people figured that out, like our fitness, and those people were like, yeah, like we're actually like a pretty big resource that's mainly dependent on a wiki, so we're just gonna stay up. But like it was surprising to me that like when I actually searched for like it's like our doctors or some shit, they're like, yeah, fuck it, like we're out of here. I'm like, well, this might be relevant to someone that needs this on like the front page of Google.
Yeah, it's an interesting problem because like technically it's Google. Like I say that it's getting worse, but it's not really Google's fault. The reality is just that a lot of people congregate in these larger online spaces, but then that larger online space like kind of hurts the, like, one of the cool things, I understand we're like really far removed from this, but like the cool thing initially about the World Wide Web was it was literally like a huge collection of message boards, 5 or 6 different search engines, a ton of different games and forums and like all these different things. Like, it was like, there was like a ton of information, a ton of places to explore. And now it's like 4 big buildings that everybody goes into basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just hasn't changed that much. Yeah, it's like now that everything is just like 3 or 4 websites, you're kind of just going to the same place to get the same information. Yep. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody told me this, and I noticed this too, in the little bit of time that I do spend reading. Reading books are fascinating because something you find is that online, like the same information will get recycled over and over and over again too. That like something will show up on Wikipedia, and then from Wikipedia, that shows up everywhere. And then if you actually like crack open a book, you're actually opening, it's like the Library of Alexandria. You're like cracking open brand new, fresh information that you've probably never seen in your life because it's not just like copy pasted across a million Reddit comments or Google pages or whatever, you know? Yeah.
I'm so on this train, man. I think that reading books is a superpower now because when you think about it, it's like everything has been, especially with like fucking YouTube shorts and TikTok, like everything's been distilled into like, can I become a master marketer in 30 seconds by watching this TikTok?
Yeah.
And if you read a book, which is like someone's dedication for 5 to 7 years to just put down that information, I try to read books in 2 categories, right? Which is like personal health and then marketing, and that's it. And I feel like I know more about those 2 subjects than most people. I don't know shit about anything else, but like that is what I study, and it's just from reading like 2 books a month.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's like crazy how much you can learn. But like right now, there's a new book that came out by Peter Attia called Outlive, which is it's really doing well on Amazon. It's like it's a really great book about like longevity and kind of our current understanding of like nutrition and fitness. Like just reading that book, there's so much dense information in that you can't get off of a blog article or like some summarized thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what have you been doing, man? Like, are you still being chased around by like crazy people? They're different crazy people now, right?
I don't even know which set of crazy people. Were you here for like the I'm a Rapist arc by Mr. Girl in Lav, or
that was the last arc I was in?
Okay,
yeah. Then I was losing track because I had that problem of trying to find you on the different platforms.
Yeah, I think actually stuff recently has been like pretty chill. Now I'm on like the fighting all the red pillars arc, and that's been going pretty well. So
that's a good one. That's a good one. I like that arc. That's you're fighting from what angle?
Not being emotionally retarded.
So like, are you hitting back at like the practices that they have? That we're talking about, like these people that like look at like high value males or something. That those people like the.
Yeah, I mean, I think all their takes on like relationship stuff is like really stupid. I don't think they understand women. I don't think their advice is good for dating. Like just everything. Yeah, the data is bad. Like the arguments are bad. Like yeah.
It's weird how I think about the type of men. There's somebody close to me in my like family who's a younger guy, like think 14, 15, and he's getting into that. Oh, and I'm trying to think of like what drives a person to do that rather than to like focus on their personal health or their finances and just like actually elevate themselves. Like, is it easier to learn these like pickup lines and tactics or something? Like I don't understand what the
yeah, that's why like
the lead generation is.
For the old like pickup artist stuff, I saw some longevity in that. Well, I mean, I guess that's stupid to say because it's dead. But the red pill stuff, I think is going to die because none of it is going to work. Like the people that are following red pill are not like picking up women or doing anything good with their lives, you know, like
right.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be the biggest reason why it'll fall off eventually, because like nobody goes from like watching a red pill podcast and being an incel to like now I'm juggling 3 high value women at once or something. It's just not happening.
Even I would argue, even if they are, they're miserable because they don't have like consistent relationships with people that actually care about them. Everything is like really surface level and is either being driven by like some kind of income they have or something like that. And it's like the one thing that's really powerful about red pill is that the failure seems to reinforce incel belief, right? Like if you go out and you get rejected, you pull some stupid creepy line because you're like a weird bastard that you think is off YouTube, and then you reject it, then like that reinforces all these, well, it's got to be the women, it's the society that's changed, you know what I mean? Like that might be why it has like some kind of survivability.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, actually I think that's actually true of all cults and all like manipulation and mindfuckery. That somehow it does a really good job. Like this is really true of people in abused relationships or abusive relationships. Is the abuser always does a really good job to make sure that anytime the abuse victim feels bad, they're finding a way to blame themselves. And that's like a really important part because basically no matter what happens, if they're successful, it's because of the manipulator that they've guided them. And if they're unsuccessful, well, it's their own fault and they need to follow the manipulator even harder. It becomes really hard for the person in their mind to audit like, well, hold on, are they telling me something wrong? Because usually the people that are in the manipulator position have enough of the markers of what you think is success to always be like a role model for you, right? Well, he's got all the cars, he's got all the money, he's got all the women, like fuck, like I have to follow him. Like he's definitely better than me in every way. Like how could I think he's wrong, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's weird that they don't go back. There's such a lack of introspectiveness where people just like don't go back and are like, oh, like maybe if I went to the gym a little bit more, or like worked on my personal confidence and like didn't try to outwardly manifest this through relationships or something, I would be a little bit better off. Like that thought never occurs to these people.
Yeah.
It doesn't even occur to the leaders, like the people that are like running this thing.
Well, the leaders will never. The leaders are making bank, right? That's like, have you heard of like Amway?
Who's that? No.
Multi-level marketing company, or New Vision, or Mary Kay. I think it's.
Oh yeah, or like doTERRA, those ones. Yeah.
Those are really good companies for the people that are selling the self-help stuff.
Yeah.
So they're not gonna change. They're not gonna learn anything different, right? Yeah. There's a lot of money to be made in like selling like courses and shit online. I didn't realize like there's like a disgusting amount of money that people are making just like selling any kind of self-help course.
Bro, I have avoided doing that for so long because I'm in that niche, you know?
Yeah.
And I could really easily make a course about like marketing, like how to make money online. I thought about that so much, and I have so many friends that are like pulling in like $300,000, $400,000 a launch, no problem, just off of pay-per-click, like AdWords. But ultimately, I just like can't rationalize it. I just think there's something. I remember Tony Robbins had who's like one of the most biggest like self-improvement guys of all time. He had a stat where he said that less than 10% of the people that bought his courses, which are like thousands of dollars, like they're pretty high, actually even open them.
Sure.
They literally just go, they buy it, they spend 2K, 3K, whatever, and they just leave it on the table. And I think the other problem is that as you go through content creation, you get steadily more jaded, or at least I do, because like nobody cares anyway. Like everyone's still going to call me a snake oil salesman or whatever. Like the criticism doesn't matter. So eventually you're just like, fuck it, I'm just going to bleed all these people. And like then you just, that's how everybody turns into the Sith.
That's always my argument for like women or whatever who are like, should I do OnlyFans? Should I not do OnlyFans? Blah, blah, blah. I feel like if I was in that position, I'd be like, listen, everybody's going to call you a slut and say you did it anyway. So fuck it. Who the fuck cares? You know, like I would do it. That was my argument in you remember Rust, right?
Yeah.
When people would get mad at like, oh, like you're rolling with like 40 people deep and blah blah. And it's like, yeah, well, I'm a streamer. Like people are gonna stream snipe me. They're gonna ghost me. They're gonna fuck with me with gangs of like 20 people anyway. If I'm gonna get all the downsides of being a streamer, I might as well capitalize on the upside. So fuck it. Yeah, I will.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, did you see that Piers Morgan clip where he's talking to this girl about OnlyFans and like basically criticizing? It's like, you're gonna have a kid one day. Like, what are you gonna think about it? And she's like, oh, she can cry in the back of my Lamborghini.
Sure. Yeah.
It's that kind of shit. But to some extent, like I do think, and I've been thinking about this a lot in the context of streaming platforms, that like if no one takes up the arms to have some kind of value system, then we're probably completely fucked. Because if it's not like the people that are running these larger communities that decide to like convey some importance on morals, what do we do?
No, I agree. The answer that I just gave you, that was like my nihilist answer from like 2 years ago. But the reality is you should conduct yourself in the best way possible. There are always going to be some people that shit on you, but they're going to be the minority. Don't let them overrule the positive example that you're setting for everybody else, right? Yeah.
Right. You have that importance on your morals, and that's like some of the things that you do. Like you actually like canvas for things you believe in, or like set up those events and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the biggest way to tell that someone isn't doing that is just to like look at their actions versus what they're saying.
Yeah. Do you want to name something? No, I'm just kidding. No.
I'm having a problem where I think I'm getting Twitter pilled.
Oh no.
Okay. I'm trying to understand immigration. Right now, I'm trying to understand. I know nothing about this. I'm so dumb. So I'm gonna say some dumbass shit, and I need you to check me because you're an informed person on this, and I'm not.
I try to be.
Why are the French, starting here, why are the French riots happening? Everything on Twitter says it's an immigration problem, which I think is just a smokescreen for it's a race problem. But that doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand like one group of people would be more inherently violent than others. And again, I'm trying really hard because I'm getting asked these questions, or I'm talking about this in like my life, and I'm like, I don't understand it, and I know you understand it.
Oof, I understand French issues.
I know you understand this better than I ever
No,
possibly could.
Okay,
yeah.
here's like a few observations. Here's a few observations that I will make. Okay, and I think collectively it's probably getting towards some notion of what's true. I think. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Here is one thing broadly speaking that I'll say. Okay. Conservatives, in a roundabout way, are incredibly correct at something that they don't realize because they always use it in a racist way, but it's actually incredibly true. And one is that it is a little bit silly that minorities in the United States of America complain about how horrible it is to be a minority here, because personally, and now I've traveled a bit more, I've talked to a lot of people, et cetera, I think in the United States, I think we actually do the best job probably in the history of the world of getting a whole bunch of different types of people to live together, and in general, to make it work pretty well. I think we do that in the US better than anybody in the world. Part of it might be because of the fact that we don't have an ethnic background as much as, Nazis or whatever want to say it. We truly are like a melting pot of different people. Like, what does it mean to be an American? We're usually talking about ideas. Unless you're a Nazi, you're not really talking about like European heritage. You're talking about like ideas and the values that we share, right? So we'll start with that. I think we do a pretty good job in America. In other countries, okay, I'm speaking very broadly now, and I could be completely wrong, but it seems like in other countries, sometimes the pushes for immigration in those countries feel like what conservatives think the push for immigration in the United States is, which is where it feels like a lot of European countries run into this problem where they feel, especially because they've got more left-leaning governments, they feel a moral compulsion to take on immigrants. They're unwilling to saddle those immigrants with moral responsibility to the country they immigrate to. And then,
what does that mean? Sorry to interrupt, but like when you say moral responsibility, what does that mean?
Like, we should open our doors to immigrants because it's the right thing to do.
But you said to saddle the immigrants themselves with moral responsibility.
The moral compulsion on the government, where they're like, well, we should open our doors to immigrants is the right thing to do. But the moral responsibility to immigrants is an immigrant ought to contribute positively to the country they go to. That shouldn't be a hope or a desire. That should be an expectation. And I think that if you say that in some European countries, I think people call you racist, unironically.
Why?
Because they're brown and Muslim. As stupid as it is, I think you see this problem exacerbated a lot, like I think it's Sweden, where like a lot of those immigrants like don't even work because of like weird government restrictions on it. It's just really, really, really stupid. Right?
There's like laws against it?
It's in Sweden. It's really complicated. I can't speak to France and Germany. I think in Germany they do a little bit of a better job at integration of immigrants into the workforce or whatever. But keep in mind everything I'm saying. This is very, 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 very broad. So
yeah. Because
of this, assimilation of immigrants in Europe, I think broadly speaking, tends to be pretty bad. Like in the United States, we don't even have a national language, but generally anywhere you go, even the super Mexican places, usually somebody's speaking English, right? You'll be okay in English anywhere in the United States. It feels like in broadly speaking in Europe, it feels like there are a lot more ghetto areas where it is incredibly ethnically homogenous, where immigrants are going to there, they immigrate to there, they become very insulated, they don't adopt the culture or customs at all of the country they're in, and they start to form like their kind of little enclaves, which is really bad. And then you wind up in a situation where the left-leaning people feel bad because they don't want to call anything out because brown people can never do wrong. The right-leaning people become increasingly racist because they see problems and like, we need to get all these brown people out of here, especially immigrants from Northern Africa that are destroying our country. And you're gridlocked where the right is probably a bit too racist and the left is probably a bit too cucked. And you can't have an actual conversation about like, what the do we even do about any of this? I think broadly, that's a very, very, very broad thing, but I think broadly speaking, that's the problem you run into in places, especially like in London and Paris, in these huge cities where you get lots of like immigrants immigrating to the cities. It's not like the United States where our immigrants assimilate so fucking well. Yeah, like it's funny. Like I actually, my first-hand kind of thought experiment about this was I started fighting with Muslims a lot a few months ago on Twitter, and I had like all of fucking Islam was like jihading me. They wanted to fucking kill me, and I kind of thought, and this might be just my own personal bias, I might be retarded, but I thought I don't feel unsafe around Muslims anywhere in the United States. I don't think there's a place in the US I would go where like, oh God, Muslims are there, I'm scared. I don't know if I would feel the same way if I was in London or Paris. I think I might actually feel a little bit like, I don't know if a dude's about to drive a truck into me. I don't know if I'm about to get macheted. Now, that's just purely my feels. So I could be wrong on that. But like that's an example. Like Muslims in the United States integrate so much differently than in other places in Europe. But yeah, so that's like the very, very, very broadest of takes on that. Yeah.
So, okay. And I'm contextualizing this from coming from a place of just trying to understand this.
Sure.
And not trying to take a side, because I don't have a side. I don't understand it. But I feel like I'm even afraid I'm going to sound racist by asking the questions I'm asking, okay?
Sure. And what you're saying right now, these are the problems.
It is the problem.
Yeah, well, yeah. It's for us as Americans, it's kind of like a funny problem. But in Europe, I think these are serious problems where, like, for instance, like in some countries, they won't even like record crime stats of certain races anymore. And it's like, okay, guys, this probably ain't it. This ain't the solution, because now we can't even talk about these things because you guys, that's really bad. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so it does seem to me that the majority of the actual like breaking of windows, burning down shit are these immigrant populations. Is that correct or wrong?
Right now, yes. Because in France specifically, there was a brown child, 17 years old, that was killed, probably with justification from the cops. I think it's fairly incontrovertible unless some new evidence comes out. They were probably within the right to shoot him. But because of all these mounting tensions of immigrants feeling like they're not being accepted in these countries, they feel like they're not getting the support that they need. They feel like they are indiscriminately treated by, or they're discriminately treated by other people, which to some extent is probably true. Now all of that's kind of like boiled over, and now they're like, well, fuck this. Like, France isn't our country. It doesn't represent us for a variety of reasons. And then this little boy just is kind of like the flashpoint for, we're going to go and fucking riot because fuck this place. It's not our country. Yeah.
What was the initial impetus to come to the country then? If the idea of coming to America, I don't know if it's still true, but used to be that you would be pursuing a much better life than the place, your original place, could give you.
The exact same.
There's a certain, there's a certain amount of pride around that, where like even an Uber driver who came from Africa or something, who may not be working like a tech job or something, is really proud of that, and not obviously just speaking like generally, but like people that I've talked to. There's like a sense of like, I've come to America to pursue this better life. Sure, there's like problems, but overall, like you were saying before, that integration seems to be more cohesive, just seems to work better. Whereas with it's clear that's not happening in these European countries. And then you've got like people like, I watched a clip from Trump like from a couple years ago, who was like, France has this problem, it's the immigrants, and then everybody sort of like goes around that. And so like, do you think that the policy improvements are stricter immigration controls or better integration of those people culturally, or like what has to happen?
I mean, something has to break. Yeah, they either need to say like, okay, well, no less immigrants, we need to change this, or it needs to be better plans and ways to integrate immigrant populations into native populations without everybody being scared about being called racist or something, right? Like there are certain, like, it sounds mean to say, but like some cultures are better than others. Some cultural practices need to be left where people come from. Things like female genital mutilation. Certain types of Sharia law, certain types of punishments, the way we act. Like some of these things need to be left where you come from. If you want to join a new country, you need to be able to assimilate in certain ways. Now, that's not to say that like no more hijabs, you can't wear anything, right? That's not a big deal. Or no more Sharia. It's okay to have your own little like cultural customs and your own little in-group like punishment spirit shit, like the Catholic Church does it, right? That's not to say that all of it needs to go away. Again, this is where like the right pushes too far, but the left needs to be willing to say like, hey, listen, if you want to come to our country, you have to contribute to our country. Like you're immigrants, you're not refugees, okay? You're coming here because you want opportunities to work and be successful, and we want to give you that opportunity, but you have to be working, to build the country of France as a member of the nation of France now. Like that's what you need to start doing, yeah. But it's really, really, really hard for people to talk about these things without getting tripped up into all sorts of racist shit. And then compile that with, if you think that U.S. history and conflict in the United States is relatively simple. In Europe, every motherfucker's got colonies, every motherfucker's got problems with neighbors, borders redrawn every fucking 50 years. Like in Europe, all of that gets compounded too by the fact that like this kid was like part Algerian, and then you've got like French colony. Like there's all this other shit that plays into it too that makes people feel resentful and everything towards each other. So it's really, really complicated and really difficult to talk about. Yeah, it's really hard, I think.
That actually leads me to the second part of my question, which is why are immigrants so fucking angry? Like why are they willing to literally tear down? Like France looks like some fucking purge shit. In fact, it's actually funny because we could talk about like Twitter as a social platform and sort of how it's degraded its content quality. But I've had to fact check a bunch of clips because they were from movies like The Purge, and I didn't know the difference.
I tweeted one yesterday morning. Yeah, I thought it was a building burning down. It was like some shit in Dubai from like 2 years ago. I had to correct it.
Yeah, it's like crazy ass shit like that because or stuff that's like literally there was one going around by, and actually like a really prominent conservative was like, this is the result of immigrants going into your country, and it showed a bunch of cars falling off a building, but it was actually the Fast and the Furious set. It was actually a fucking movie set. And so it's like but once you parse through all that shit, you do run into this like holy shit, like this is still really crazy. Like there are actual lions and elephants running around that got released from the zoo. What the is causing people to do all that? Like, why are they so individually?
Oh wait, I think that was all fake too, right? Or there was a Twitter compilation where there were like lions like walking over cars. I don't think that was real. There might have been some people that let some animals away out of a zoo, but I don't think that the majority of those clips. Yeah, I think those might all be fake.
See,
yeah.
Oh god, this is a problem I knew was going to happen with like the proliferation of AI, but it's
even with that AI with internet, if you follow like Middle Eastern conflict, this is so common too. Somebody will post a video and be like, here's Kurdish people murdering innocent Iraqis, in 2008, and in reality, it's like FSA soldiers being executed by like Syrian forces under Assad in like 2013, because like they're all brown, they're all Arabic, we don't know the uniforms, they all have the same types of guns. Like, yeah, we just look at it as like, oh, brown people killing brown people, must be whatever the video title says. But in reality, yeah, you can get very, very, very easily misled by all of this shit, and you have to be ultra careful. Yeah.
Did you see that real quick, like as a slight divert? Did you see the Russian shit? Oh my God, talk about misinformation. People were coming out immediately and they're like, wait, it's over, shit. The Kremlin has fallen. And there was like, they've shot down like 30 helicopters, 80 airplanes, 200,000 soldiers dead.
Oh, for yeah.
It was really like literally the guy just like showed up at a town, like sat down and then like left. Like,
well, hold on. No, that was an attempted coup. He didn't get the support he wanted, and they did shoot down some Russian aircraft. Somebody's going to die from that. That shit was crazy. It just wasn't as crazy as some people were reporting on.
It ended up being like 3 or 4 Russian aircraft, correct?
Sure, but when you attempt a coup, a literal fucking dictator, okay, that's like KGB, you're probably gonna, some crazy shit is gonna, we'll see how that resolves later, but yeah, Putin's authority is shaky at best, I think, in Russia right now. But no, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, people exaggerate a lot. It's very, very, very difficult, to figure out what's real and what's not real.
Okay, do you have any, I guess, like, I'll hold on to the second question, but do you have any means of parsing that for yourself? Because I feel like your stream relies on a lot of requires a lot of accuracy. You've got to be pretty accurate with what you're talking about. How are you parsing all of this?
You just have to be willing to go through a lot of information and try to fact check as much as you can. You can't just, like, if you've got like a scrolling Twitter feed and you just read and believe what's directly in the feed, you got to dig a little bit. As long as you're willing to dig a little bit, you can usually find what's true or not. But if you're just like getting fed information, chances are people are feeding you what they want you to see, which can be bad,
So you literally just do the work. Like, you actually just put in the time to try to figure out what's real and what isn't on every individual topic.
There was that time that I remember, even during the, I think it was during the beginning of the Ukrainian-Russian war, where Hassan was looking at like war footage that he was like, this is insane, we're seeing crazy shit. And it was like footage from Arma 3. Like, I mean, yeah, this shit happens,
It's so fucking funny, dude.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's shit like that. Like, I don't know. Okay. You don't have any trusted sources or anything? Like, you don't think that any media is reliable or anything? Like, you have to individually fact check
when it comes to like foreign affairs, I wait for like Reuters or the Associated Press to report on it. Usually they're pretty good at stuff. For financial stuff, Wall Street Journal is pretty good. Financial Times is pretty good. FT's really good. It just depends, yeah. Mainstream sources usually won't report outright lies. Even like CNN, even Fox News, generally they're not reporting outright lies. They'll wait to confirm stories, but...
Okay. So we were talking about like the anger that's coming from so what do you think is what's like, how's that being?
I mean, there are probably a lot of French people that legitimately feel like they're treated like second-class citizens, and they're probably not wrong. There are probably a lot of people that want to treat them like second-class citizens for a variety of reasons. It just seems like for whatever reason, and I don't know the policy of different European countries enough to say why, but it seems like there are, they're not doing a good job at integrating their immigrant populations like we do in the United States.
And that's a combination, I guess, of policy and culture.
I mean, I would say it needs to be the policy of the governments to figure out how they want to integrate the incoming populations. Like that, the government has to figure it out.
Do these countries have the same kind of like left-right issues that we do, the polarization, I'd say, and that we do have in America, or is it a different problem?
I mean, like a lot of it maps on. A lot of it is like fairly similar. Yeah, and then there's like world events that influence things too. Like the whole world changed, or I should say all of Europe changed quite a bit after 2013, the Syrian refugee crisis. That was a ton of refugees that were pouring into Europe from Syria, and then increasingly from like North Africa and stuff too. So like that definitely got the right-leaning parties a big bolster. It definitely brought in a lot more people, definitely exacerbated a lot of pre-existing problems. Like, yeah.
What happened there?
Well, Syria essentially became like a failed state for a while because of rebel forces in the country. Assad lost control of his country. Millions of Syrians fled the country as it was like devastated by war. You had like 20 different factions. ISIS started there. You had the Free Syrian Army that was fighting there. You had Russia coming down with jets to try to help. You had Turkey firing into that. Arguably, the U.S. was probably shipping weapons down there. ISIS was starting to take over entire parts of the country, bleeding over to Iraq. There was just like all sorts of shit. So like millions of Syrians were fleeing that country to go to Europe. Probably the largest refugee crisis in recent history, I think. Yeah.
Holy shit.
And then after that, I would say that's probably why Brexit happened, but I can't prove that. But yeah, after that, like a whole bunch of Syrians started to flee to Europe, and that probably made people feel a certain type of way about a lot of immigrants and everything. Yeah.
Why? I'm sorry. Why would the Syrian crisis have to like spark Brexit? Or what's your theory on that? I don't understand.
I think Brexit in the United Kingdom was. Everybody will lie about this if they voted for it, but the reality is Brexit in the United Kingdom, I think, was primarily driven by anti-immigration sentiment, and I think that the Syrian refugee crisis exploded everybody's feelings about immigration.
So that just like kind of prompted all of the problems and the need for separation. Because you said this, I mean, the Brexit was basically an England thing, right? Like that mainly came from that.
Brexit was, it's kind of complicated. Basically, a guy, took a vote because he's like, let's vote on some shit because it would be funny to do it and it makes me look better. And then the vote went in a way that people didn't really expect. And then the entire United Kingdom basically failed as part of the European Union. It's like the way that it works is simultaneously really complicated and then like really naively, stupidly fucking simple. It's probably one of the dumbest events in recent history. It's just super, super, super retarded.
And now it's irrevocable. Like it's just gonna.
Yep. They're out of the European Union. They're suffering a whole bunch of economic consequences, immigration consequences. It's just like, yeah, it was a pretty bad idea, but what are you gonna do?
Why would it be immigration consequences? But like, doesn't immigration get really hard?
Yeah, but like the reality is, and a lot of Europeans don't like to admit this, they do need immigrants. Like workers are really important. There's a lot of seasonal workers and shit. As much as people in Western Europe will shit on people in Eastern Europe, come summertime and shit, like a lot of those seasonal workers come over and they're really important to keep those economies working. So they do like the workers. They do like the work to some extent. But there's obviously other problems on top of that too,
So understanding this issue, how would you like parse this in conversations so that I don't? How do I not sound like a fucking bigot? like what's the best way to approach this? Or I guess it's so outside of my ballpark. Maybe I should just be like, I don't know. But then I don't have anybody to like really refer them to, right?
I would say like the broadest, and if people get mad, like that's all you could do is be mad. You'd have to say we have to have a better conversation. It seems to be the case, keep in mind this is very broad, but I would say it seems to be the case that we need to have a better conversation about integrating immigrants into the cultures of the countries that they go to in Europe. Seems to be that they have a really difficult time doing that. And some countries are having massive blowback as a result.
That's a really good answer, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it's a hard one, yeah.
Yeah,
what?
This
Sorry.
One of the things that's most impressive about you is that you've managed to like skirt this line of neutrality for so long where, I mean, everybody's trying to label you, but like the fact that they can't put you to the far right consistently or the far left consistently shows that like you have a good way of communicating this, which is like when I started running into this problem, I was like, I know the person I gotta talk to.
Sure, just be careful. Just because somebody can't put you on the far right or far left, it could just mean that you're a spineless fuck that's fenced at every issue and you don't want to actually have a conversation about it. So yeah.
Well, if I don't understand the like get me on a platform issue like Kick versus Twitch or something like that, and like we're going to town. But like, I feel like these issues where I truly just don't understand, you kind of have to fence it, right? I'm one of those people. I believe that like, and I don't know what your opinion is on this, but like I think that most people probably aren't capable of making informed decisions about like, especially regional politics, like national politics, but even local politics, or they should make decisions. Like one of the things I realized was like when I lived in Seattle, and like Seattle started to go really downhill, and it's one of the reasons why I moved. Much more crime, much more. I think, speaking from like just my own view of the city, I think a lot of it had to do with defunding the police and the areas just becoming more dangerous.
Stuff like, not to sound mean, but like that Chaz shit, that should have been like crushed by like a military.
Yes.
Like the police should have been like, nah, we're not doing this shit. Here come the assault rifles. Like, no, you cannot secede from the fucking city on some neighborhood blocks. That is fucking wild.
In the middle of the fucking, like, in the middle of the fucking city, like literally Capitol Hill.
Yeah, that was stupid.
It was fucking crazy. And then still to this day, so much of like the council meetings and everything, I think a lot of people like this is the most important thing I've ever learned about politics, is that I don't understand, and I can't understand what's happening at a national level unless like that's my full-time job. But almost everybody can understand what's happening at a local level, and they can, and furthermore they can influence it much more dramatically because there's so much fewer people that are even voting in those types of things. So I feel like when I emailed my city council in Seattle and I got like a reply back from someone that was on the council every time, I felt like I was having a conversation more so, like if you call it the chief of police or something, right? You're having a conversation more so than you ever could, like selecting like Joe Biden versus Trump or anything like that. Yeah,
that's something that I tried to harp on my audience a lot. People don't realize like entire developments in cities can get held up by one lady that goes to every single city council meeting and knows all the people. And and
furthermore, this is where change is happening, right? Like we can say that on a national level, like there's laws being passed and there's Supreme Court decisions and shit like that, but real change or lack of it is happening at a local level everywhere.
Yeah, especially when it comes to like policing and stuff. Yeah.
Yes, which is such a huge part of your life, like what laws there are, like what's happened, like where you live in your 10-mile radius, right?
Yeah.
So So back to the fence sitting thing, the reason I brought that up was because I feel like to even become qualified at a local level, I had to spend quite a bit of time understanding that situation, much less like a national level. Like, don't you think it's pretty appropriate for, like, my job? What do I do, right? Like, I own a marketing company. So, like, if we're going to talk about issues like that, let's go. But, like, is it my moral responsibility to understand national level issues and like vote and do all those things if I can't possibly be qualified to do so?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think there needs to be a bigger focus on the local level. Yeah, like everybody knows who AOC is, nobody knows who their like mayor is. Like it's just like it's unfortunate. Yeah, but I mean like a lot of it too has to do with like how the economy is arranged today, how the internet is arranged today. Like the internet like gets us bought into so many issues that are like national or international in scope that it's hard to get people like super excited about. Like, why would I give a fuck about my mayor when we're talking about the future of the world with the president of the United States? Or, like what is Matt Gaetz or Jim Jordan or like these other guys, like what is McConnell doing right now? And it's like, well, worrying about that isn't going to help as much. But I mean, that's just like the nature of it's the nature of like the internet. It's the nature of moving around a lot too, like I've lived in, over the past 5 years, I think I've lived in like 4 or 5 different cities. I don't think I could tell you the mayor in any, like I know like, is it Garcetti in fucking LA, but I don't know who the mayor of like Glendale was. I don't know who the mayor of Miami Beach is. Yeah.
Do you but back to that, like the question was like, do you think I have a moral obligation to participate at a national level? Like,
I mean, you should vote
anyone?
Like on your federal elections and shit. Yeah, but probably not being, I think it's more important to be informed on your local level than your federal level, I would say. Yeah, but I mean, you should still participate on the federal level, so yeah.
You think so?
Yeah, of course. You got to vote. That's our president. It's our country. Yeah.
Didn't Jefferson say that like originally landowners were the only people that could vote because they're the only people that were like even close enough to being informed to be able to. Like the whole idea of the electoral college is that people were too stupid to
a little
vote,
bit, yeah.
isn't it?
And our Senate used to be picked by our state legislators instead of the people directly too. But I mean, things change. We also black people also couldn't vote, and so couldn't women for 200 years, so, or 150 years.
Point.
So. Yeah. I mean, things change.
But I kind of like the idea of like I don't know how you measure this, but like participating contributors are probably the only people that could. I guess that's way too dangerous to say.
Yeah.
You could.
If you're affected by the system, you should probably be allowed to vote about the system, not just people that are making money and paying taxes or whatever, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Shit. CID, you're the right person to talk to about this.
Sure. What else? Wait, what did you originally come in to talk about? You had like a question.
That was it. It was. I'm trying to understand.
Oh, I'm so
how immigration
stupid.
is affecting. Yeah, I'm trying to understand how immigration is affecting various things across the world, and I'm trying not to get Twitter pilled.
Yeah.
Because I'm feeling like I'm continuously being exposed to content that's driving me to think. Twitter is a huge problem. I'm thinking about like just dropping the platform right now.
Yeah, the stuff that's getting pushed today is a little insane. Yeah.
It like changed totally with Elon coming on.
Lots of fight videos with black people, lots of violent stuff being pushed. Like, oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like and I feel like even if I'm vigilant and introspective, I'm still being trained to think a certain way. And I guess I didn't like the direction that was going, so I wanted to talk to you because I wanted to understand like how to parse that and have that conversation with myself, but also like how to like check myself from like, because you're in the sphere every day. You have been for like in 12 years now, but you're not like corrupted by it somehow.
Maybe, yeah. Keep in mind, like we all could have our biases. Like there could be things that I'm like majorly wrong on, so you know, be careful.
But the very fact that you can say that like proves that not to be the case. Like
yeah, sure. But I'm just saying, like some of the text behavior, like it could be that somebody could come in here and somebody could say, actually, like here's a take that I've heard that I didn't tell you at all. French people, their country has a very rich history of like revolution and saying to the whole world. I'm pretty sure France has like left NATO once and they've like threatened to do it. Right? France has a big history. When they protest, those motherfuckers go crazy. Okay, they get out the guillotines, they revolt, they kill their king, they just do some wild shit. And France has a rich history of incredibly violent protests. It could be the case that like there are a few ghettos in like Paris and like big cities like that, maybe, but maybe for the most part, maybe most of France is actually pretty peaceful. They don't actually all protest like crazy. Most of the immigrants there do get along with normal people, and you're just seeing like the worst of the worst highlights on media just because France tends to have a lot of, you know, violent protests. This time it just happens to be immigrants doing it instead of you know, white people throwing bananas at football players or whatever, right? That might be the case. I don't know if that's the case, but that could be the case. Somebody could give that take, and I don't live there. That might be true. Or there might be an element of truth to that there's like more credit than I'm giving it, you know? Maybe. I don't know, you know? Yeah,
it's just hard, man. Like, do you think I should like get off Twitter and like read different shit? Like should I like what's your take on that for like
just be aware that you're
I'm asking
always
like a really
being
general
fed.
question. Obviously, you can't advise me personally on that, but I'm trying to say like,
I always just say like, be aware that you're being fed like certain information.
Okay. Yeah. It's all changed. Like this didn't used to be the case where I used to feel like I could see. Here's the problem I'm running into. Actually, I could be a little bit more granular. My job to some extent relies on news, right? Like I need to understand, like if XQC moves to kick, and I need to know that really fast. And like Twitter will tell me that in a minute, right? Like, and I can start doing real research on that topic. Yeah. But simultaneously, it will feed me 40 fight videos where I'll think that like, you know, so I'll be led to think a certain way, and now everything's. So I'm trying to figure out like how to.
Have you ever heard of there's something called the Gell-Mann, I think it's Gell-Mann amnesia effect?
No, what's that?
Okay. I'm sure that you've seen like a Dexerto article, or you've seen, God forbid, CNN or somebody write an article about like what's going on in the industry, and you probably read it and you're like, there's so much wrong. These guys clearly just don't know.
Oh, that happens almost every
time.
Day.
Yeah. There's something called the Gell-Mann amnesia effect, which is interesting. You'll read a newspaper, you read the first 3 pages, and you believe it's a newspaper. It's probably right. Then you turn the page, and this is an area that you're specialized in, and you're like, oh my God, how can? Wait. I just got an ad on my map. I'm sorry.
Okay.
You get to the 3rd or 4th page and you read it, and you're like, oh my God, this is so incorrect.
Yeah.
And then you laugh about it, but then you flip to the next page and you're like, oh, this is an area not specialized in. Yeah, this must all be correct, right? So you realize that when you stumble into things you have a high level of expertise in, that the news is completely wrong, but when you don't know as much, you trust them implicitly on everything, right? And it doesn't actually make sense, right? The amnesia is like you forget that you just realized that they didn't have as high level competency when you had the competency, but now you're willing to trust them on everything else. When you see people that get stuff really, really, really wrong about like your industry, and then they start writing about other countries and stuff where they don't have reporters on the ground, they don't have firsthand knowledge or whatever. If that happens, just be aware that like these people could be getting things wrong too, you know?
Okay, but then I think we enter this like new world that we're coming up on that like I do think will be influenced by AI and is already being influenced by just like everybody. Like nobody knows what the fuck is real.
Yeah, that is an issue,
and like even if you take the time to individually parse out every single like article and like go source it and everything, there's so much disinformation that I feel like today I can only stay like in my lane of like the two things that I spend the most time trying to understand.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's not really a shortcut for it, but if you want to be pretty informed in an area, you just you got to start reading a lot of stuff, because what'll happen is as you become more familiar with an area, you'll be able to say like, okay, this is probably bullshit. This is probably true. This, like, you start to get a feel for like what's true and false just because you have familiarity with the events, right?
Okay, so the only real way there basically is no magic solution. The only real way for me
to just be somewhat
like,
informed, yeah. A really, really good example of this is like, for instance, like Russia. A lot of people worried about Russia nukes, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't know anything about it, saber rattling over nukes is really scary. Putin talks about he's going to nuke people. But if you know anything about like nuclear doctrine or nuclear theory, and you see that like Russia's saying that they're moving nukes, Russia's showing everybody where their nuclear is going, that's actually a really good thing. You should be communicative about like where nuclear weapons are going. You're not doing things in a covert manner. It doesn't look like you're actually preparing for a strike. You're just threatening it because you're playing games with it. But in reality, because of how nuclear doctrine works and because of how people actually use nukes, we know that there's actually no threat right now at the moment of there being a nuclear strike. Because if there was,
that right?
Yes.
Wow. Because
if that was true, they wouldn't be saying it, right? Nobody would be threatening it like that because
they just do it.
Yeah, saber rattling for nukes has never worked for anybody. It's never been an effective policy. Like, we're gonna nuke you. That's never stopped or started any conflict ever. But yeah,
what's the purpose of saying it then? Just like
because the public is really scared of nukes. So it's just it's like a PR thing. You get like the public to feel to try to lose support for things basically. Yeah.
But there isn't actually interesting. Oh,
there are things that would start. Oh yeah, go yeah.
Sorry, 1 second.
The only scary part is if Hassan comes out on stream, guys, and he says there's no chance that Russia's going to nuke anybody. Okay, move out of the major cities, get as far away as you can from any military bases, because if that happens, then you know shit's going to hit the fan.
Yeah, sorry.
Hi.
We were talking about like nuclear doctrine and how it's like not actually as crazy as people think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was asking, so like, why even bother saying that shit then?
Yeah, because the public plays to public perception really, really well.
But what is that? What's the outcome there? Like, the
goal is to reduce foreign support for the war because it makes you think. Yeah, exactly. Because right now Ukraine is surviving off of foreign support. So if Russia
makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Huh.